Welcome back to the Georgia Show. Thanks for joining us today. Bill, Quinn, and I are going to take you on a trip around Georgia and around the world and what's going on in politics. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Todd. It's good to see you.
Yeah, man. So I just want a little housekeeping. We are going to be on the Pentagon Press Corps, as we've announced here, and we'll be having an office in the Pentagon. So you're going to see a lot more military reporting out of CDM and out of the Georgia Record and our military channel, armedforces.press or AFP. There's a lot of veterans and a lot of military in Georgia, so I think it's going to be really kind of dual use between what's going on in Georgia and on AFP and our other main channels. So look forward to that. I just got back from a conference in DC with the Iranian resistance, and I just want to share a few things. It was very impactful, one of the best ones I've been to, and talking about what's going on inside Iran and the youth rising up against the regime. And I've always said that we have the ability to support these people and take down the regime from the inside, and we don't need to be flying B-2s over there. We can let them take care of their own issues, and I wrote a book on it. I'll just mention that real quick, Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. You can find that at historyofbooks.com or anywhere books are sold if you're interested in geopolitics and what's happening around the world. But I just want to show a couple pictures. What was really impressed me was the youth. And this is one of the panels talking about youth involvement in Iran, and the even second generation Iranians born here to Iranian families were very focused on helping their country and bringing down the regime and doing it from the inside. And to see the youth was really, really interesting and very, very similar to, they quoted the American Revolution often as kind of their guide as to what's happening in Iran. So I found that interesting. And let me show you something else. There's been a lot of talk about, well, we've been accused. Bill, weren't we accused of supporting Muslim extremists or some crap?
Yes, we were. We were accused of being Hamas supporters.
Yeah, well, let me show you something of one of the girls on stage. I found this fascinating. There's a huge Christian population in Iran, and they're very involved in the resistance. I talked with this girl afterwards, and she's going to come on for an interview on our Christian persecution series that we're doing around the world. So just a great event, and we'll continue to bring the story of that group to the world. And if you are looking for a gift for that person who has everything, check out Paying the Price, The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance. Now, I want to shift. We've talked about Christianity a little bit. Well, actually, Bill, what do you have today? Let's go through that, and then I'll go into something else.
Well, so we're going to pick back up one of the counties and their shenanigans. It's this week has been like watching a slow motion train wreck. You don't want to watch it, but you can't take your eyes off, you know. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the moves that Trump has been making this week. I had some great interviews this week, and I wanted to share just a few minutes of one discussion that I had with David Clements. Now, we'll talk more about what the substance is, but David has been a very, very good support for CDM, for myself, and he is making some very interesting information available, and with every passing week it just seems to get more and more important. So we'll go through that, probably a couple other little surprises as we go through.
Excellent. Well, let's stay on the issue of Christian persecution. We have been on the ground in Armenia and in Beirut multiple times, and we'll be going back into other areas as well. Stay tuned on that. But in Armenia, there was and Tucker talked about this on his podcast with the Armenian representative, and also of the church, and also of Robert Amsterdam, who we've interviewed several times, who's the attorney out of London for the Christian church, and who's being persecuted in Armenia. They're literally trying to take over the churches, arresting, I think they've arrested like 35 priests. They are threatening to arrest the Catholicos, who's the head of the church. They're threatening to seize the property of Echmiadzin, which is their first which is like the seat of their church, like the Vatican, and of the Orthodox Armenian Apostolic Church, which is Orthodox. And they are threatening, that's the first Christian cathedral ever in the world, built in 301 AD, apostolic, meaning the apostles, Bartholomew, came up there and helped to build that whole structure. So a lot going on in Armenia. But as Tucker was saying, was a prayer breakfast in Yerevan, the capital, with Franklin Graham and other preachers there, seeming to assist the Armenian government, the globalist government who's bringing in migrants, trying to destroy Armenia, trying to destroy the Christian church. And I wrote this article this morning, Pastor Joel Tinney, who wrote a long treatise on why he was supporting what tried to say it's all about forgiveness, let's forgive. Well, there's still Armenian priests rotting in jail. There's still Armenian Christians in Azeri Baku rotting in prison. The Christians have been ethnic cleansed from their ancient homelands in Nagorno-Karabakh. And I know people don't know where this is, but this is the first Christian country ever, and it's important to understand what's happening to Christians around the world and kind of this weird evangelical support for the destruction of Christianity. So you can read the article. It's on CDM and find it there. And I wanted to show one other vehicle as the American military as the American military gets more, I guess, upping the pressure on Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro. I just wanted to play this short video. I think you'll find it humorous.
Segundo punto de trabajo. Peace, peace, peace. Hacer todo por la paz. Como decía John Lennon, ¿no? Ángel Nazaret, ¿cómo era la canción de John Lennon? Imagine us people. Mira, jodedores. Imagine all the people.
So there you have the dictator singing John Lennon, Imagine All the People. Just fascinating. I don't know what's going to go on down there, but I found that quite interesting. All right, back to you, Bill.
Well, I'll share one thing that came out. I don't have the video of it, but apparently in the last couple of days, as reporters were walking around the White House, they would go near the Rose Garden, and apparently they were blaring Elton John's song, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. Huh. And I mean, they had it cranked is what I'm told. So not quite sure what all this means, but, I can only remember when Maduro was having people run over with armored vehicles in the Capitol because they were protesting. And all of a sudden now he's singing, imagine all the people,
Jazz hands.
I don't have the math to do that one. I simply don't.
Yeah,
so
I don't either. Just really weird times we're living in, my friend. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Indeed. Bear with me for just a moment. And I'm going to pull in some stuff to give us a couple things to talk about here. So you'll recall that last week we spoke about some of the shenanigans going on in Forsyth County. In part, they seem to wrap around a concern, a fear by the county commission about what moves Hank Sullivan is making and going to make as he runs for county commission. And it's only gotten more bizarre this week. And so this is the train wreck. You can't take your eyes off it. It's in slow motion. Things happen and you hear about them and you check them and you find out they're right. And it's like, wow. So here's where this started. So about a week and a half ago, ethics complaints were filed against 4 of the members of the Forsyth County Commission. We can go into detail, but essentially to crystallize it, they've been charged with doing business outside the public eye, which is against Georgia sunshine laws, which require that governing boards have access, provide access to the public, and indeed that they answer open records requests to show what they are doing and what communication is going on. So this ethics complaint was filed, and you'll recall that we reported that subsequent to that, it was found and reported and very frankly confirmed, I believe, based on what I am now shared, that in part, a private Facebook group was being used by these commissioners and potentially three other officials, more state officials in this case, or school board officials, to communicate. And the question is, why would that be the case? And why would this be done outside the public eye? That's really not in keeping with the precepts of Georgia's sunshine laws. So we went to take a look at it, and I did look at the group about a week and a half ago, and I was able to see on Facebook, you're familiar with, there's a name of the group, and there's normally a picture they picked that talks about themselves and so forth. Well, I went back the end of this week and found this. When I do the search on, and the name of at least one group that they're a part of is called the Forsyth HOA and Homeowners. And all of a sudden, I didn't see what I saw before. I found this group, and it's not private, it's public. And as opposed to over 6,000 members, it has 3. And if anybody that knows me would say that at this point, I was getting a question in my mind. So when I zoom in on that particular group, here's what you find. Now, that picture happens to be sort of a default picture that Facebook adds to the top of a page when you create it. So that's nothing customized. The name of the group appears to be correct, but again, it doesn't have 6,000 or over 6,000 members. It has 3. Well, lo and behold, with the help of other parties, we were able to figure out that, in fact, the group still exists. It didn't disappear. But for one reason or another, now I can't see it. How could that be? And we were able, with the help of other parties, we were able to go in and look at it, and there's the group, and it exists, and it's still got the same number of people. But now I can't see it. Now, how many others can't see it anymore? We don't know that yet, but I suspect we're going to get the opportunity to find out. So the first question I ask is, if you were on one of these groups that's now got a complaint against you, and you know that people are taking a real close look at what you are and have been doing, what message do you think it sends to remove visibility to a group you are part of? I think it sends a bad message. And I think it sends a bad message to the residents of Forsyth County and well beyond. The unspoken or unasked question yet is this the only county that's doing this? We don't know that, but it seemed to be, fairly well organized. And you'll notice that on the page that exists, there's a number of different groups here that claim to be a part of this. Why would this just be Forsyth County? I wonder if we're going to find that there's these private groups, maybe some you can see, maybe some you can't see, but they may be doing this in other counties. So that was very, very fascinating. Now, the other thing that we'll focus on for a few minutes is when you ask the right question, just like what we've seen go on in Fulton County for going on now years, you will see steps taken to avoid answering that question or avoid giving the information. Isn't it amazing that we're going through all these things with Fulton County as we speak today, where Fulton County is fighting tooth, according to Kevin Moncla, I think his quote was, they're fighting tooth and nail to avoid disclosing those ballots from 2020. And the more they fight, the more people become convinced there's something there. Otherwise, why would they be so interested in hiding this?
Yeah.
And so one of the other things that's now happened is there have been additional open records requests. And this is the explanation that I checked to make sure that I understood why Facebook wasn't visible to me. It says right here, the group was deleted. Well, it's clearly not deleted, or its privacy settings have changed. That could have happened. Or you may have been removed. I was never part of the group, so I couldn't be removed. Or banned. I guess I could be banned or blocked. So something's happened specifically with regard to me, apparently, that allows me no longer to see that group. All of this seems to circle around the announcement, as we said, that Hank Sullivan is running for the county commission seat, and he's running against one Carrie Hill. I believe that's District 1. And so we're going to hear a lot more from Hank. He's not on with us today, but we'll I'm sure learn much more in the coming weeks and months. So I mentioned these open records requests. When you make these, you submit in writing a list of things that you would like to get back from the government entity, whoever it happens to be. Well, this happened to go to the Forsyth County county, and they asked for the emails in a particular, I understand, a particular date range, I believe, between the various members of the county commission, because they wanted to see their communications that had been had. You and I both know if I want to go in and find my emails from a certain person, I can look them up. They probably come up in a single list. I can print them off. I can cut them and paste them. I can send them to somebody else. Might take a little bit of time, but this request went in, and it's from Scott Howard. And the county responded with what you see on the right-hand side, which is a list of the definitions of what they're going to provide. And then they said, oh, and by the way, this will cost you $37,000 for 1,083 emails. Wow.
Half of somebody's salary for the year.
I'm wondering if they promoted somebody up from Fulton County to come help with this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But $37,000, and we're not done yet. The other thing that was asked for was the I believe it's the phone communications or apps and social media communications that would be participated in by these people. And there's again this list of the commissioners, and there may be a few others. That came back, and that the county wants $96,000 to disclose.
Bill, I did an open records request to up in Rome, Georgia, when they had the Ukrainian police there, for any emails associated with that, and it came back, with a lot of data, and it was $120.
Yep. Well, and the good news was they told you about it, which kind of fascinating. It meant, what did that mean? Well, they had been there, but there wasn't much to hide about it. So just think about this for a minute. $37,000 for the emails and $96,000 to show you what they've been communicating in, I believe, social media and applications and other things.
Obviously, that's a cute little way to prevent them from releasing the data.
It's a cute little way to try to prevent the data from coming out. Yes, it is. Yeah. And if we hadn't seen this in a similar way in past years, we probably wouldn't even know what we're looking at. But again, we've said it time and time again. Part of our job is to make sure people are looking at the right stuff. This is the right stuff. Something's wrong when you ask for information regarding your county's governance, and you get quoted total of $130,000 to be able to see it.
Yeah.
This is the ethics complaint, and I wanted to bring this out because I want to underscore the names of the folks that may be involved in whatever this ethics concern is. Again, the 4 county commissioners: Carrie Hill, Alfred John, Mendy Moore, and Laura Simonson. And then there's also some elected officials: Mike Valdez, Senator Greg Dolezal, and State House member Todd Jones. I think we've heard Todd Jones' name in the past with regard to Talatrix and other things. And so he surfaces again in this instance. We don't know where all this is going to lead, but boy, you just have the feeling that this is a cauldron of stuff that somebody doesn't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about. They don't want to disclose. They don't want to see the emails. They don't want them to be released. Why? Why is the question? So this will be an interesting set of dialogues for the coming, I guess, days and weeks. We'll see what happens here. Did you want to take a break for just a moment?
Yeah, sure. Let's pay some bills. David Cross is our resident financial advisor, and we've talked about this many times, but for new listeners, if you have a death in the family, a divorce, a sale of a business, an estate issue, retirement planning is a huge one, or just how to manage your portfolio in this crazy financial environment with all the arrows coming in from all sides. I was told back on the street long ago, if you want an advisor who's been through several bear markets, and David is definitely that. So we'll play an ad from him, but we've had great experience with people coming to David, a lot of good feedback from people working with him. So I'd highly recommend him if you are in that situation. But here we go.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mix it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
So there you go, Nucleo Boost. Check it out. It's what keeps us going at CDM. This is a great stocking stuffer, by the way. They have it in capsule form now for someone who may need some help with their nutrition, hasn't really got on the Maha bandwagon yet, still eating those burgers and processed food. Maybe this will do them good for Christmas. Fits right in the stocking. Go to cdmnutrition.com. Check out the subscriptions. They're cheaper. Back to you, Bill.
Boy, I feel troubled. I had a burger last night. Oh gosh!
But well, as long as it's not fried in canola oil, that engine lubricant, you're good.
It was not. It was done over the grill.
Cool.
All right. So I thought it was important to spend a few minutes talking about MTG, and the last few days have shown some surprising, maybe remarkable moves by the president regarding MTG. First, he brings out this. Now, you won't be able to read it, but I'll read you the first line or two. I am withdrawing my support and endorsement from Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports, transgender for ending DEI, he's concerned about Marjorie's support and is really calls her out in length, and then just says, he's basically done with her. Now, this would be, for many people that haven't been watching very closely, this could be a dramatic, big surprise. Most people for years saw Marjorie Taylor Greene next to the stage at almost every rally. How she was able to get to every rally around the country for 3 years, we don't know, but apparently she was. But at the same time, here in Georgia, we remember a number of things that have caused concern. And so I want to go through some recent things that we've watched and we have reported on, and also some things that people may have forgotten, and some that you and I've been involved with, Todd, that people may not have ever known about. But I want to go ahead and we'll talk about them today. So first is this. Now you'll recall that when the debate on Epstein came out, and everybody's like, "Oh, release the Epstein files, release the." She goes out, and along with Thomas Massie, they go in front of a group, and the group is holding a number of signs which, in one method or another, invoke concern about Trump being part of the Epstein files and the Epstein dynamic, whatever it turns out to be. And she stood in front of this, just as you see here. We reported it at the time. We also reported that James O'Keefe was in attendance that day and found out that at least one of the major groups that was an anti-Trump group was in fact behind a lot of this. And they had plants around the crowd that were answering questions or posing questions in particular ways to try to build the anti-Trump rhetoric. Then, just in this last week, she goes on The View, and it seems all palsy-walsy with one of the most hateful shows against Trump over the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years that I can remember.
What build? Palsy-walsy? Is that
palsy-walsy? Yeah, I know it's a technical term. I can explain it, but I'd need to draw some diagrams and need a whiteboard. So
no worries.
Okay, so there's that. Then recall when we had drama here in Georgia, and there was concern about Brian Pritchard, BKP, for those of us who know him well. And even though a state agency had investigated a concern about whether he had fulfilled already and closed the books on some charges up in Pennsylvania, and they came back and they said in writing, oh yes, this was over in 1999. The Georgia GOP, led by Josh McCoon, went full steam ahead and said, we want you to resign. When he wouldn't resign, they took steps. Some claim not in keeping with the rules of the Georgia GOP party or Inc. To remove him, and ultimately did remove him from his post as first vice chair. When the request from McCoon came, as I recall, it was either the next day or the day after, Marjorie Taylor Greene issued this. The first vice chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, Brian Pritchard, voted illegally 9 times while serving his probation for felony check forgery. Well, according to our probation department here in Georgia, that was closed in 1999. This is 2024. So how could it still be hanging out there? Notably, we remember
it was closed to the party leadership when he came in.
And that's true. It was discussed with the party leadership. So the other thing is that to our knowledge, after asking and then after searching, we can find no research, no communications, nothing that was done between her and any parties, including Brian Pritchard, to determine the legitimacy of this. So where did she get this information? Simply from a phone call between Josh McCoon and members of the state committee and Brian Pritchard? We don't know where this came from, but literally within hours, I believe, she was acting on this. Most notably, you see lots of tweets go out. We post tweets, you post tweets, and they'll be covered by, hundreds of people. Maybe they'll be looked at. This announcement from Marjorie Taylor Greene and this notion of Brian Pritchard went out and was viewed globally, around the world, even over in Asia. Usually the only way that would have been facilitated is somebody pushed it. They pushed it with investment. They pushed it through perhaps wire services. We don't know all the different mechanisms, but there are ways to boost your posts. And it appears that this was done in this case. So in any case, we wanted to remind people that Marjorie Taylor Greene came out rip-roaring that Brian Pritchard had to leave.
And that was obviously shows the importance they attached to getting rid of Brian.
That's correct. And what was now recall what was he asking about? He was asking about the status of the Georgia GOP Inc., the corporate version of the party that claims it has no members, and what the status was of the case between the Georgia GOP and John Padgett, a case that finally appeared to be ended, and yet they sealed the agreement that was substantiated years before because they didn't want anybody to see it. So that's a whole nother conversation. We've covered that extensively. Here too, we get into just before the state convention, and here's Marjorie Taylor Greene saying she endorses Josh McCoon. Huh. Well, that's very interesting. And then on the right, you can see that after he was supposedly reelected to chairman, she's congratulating him. So I wanted to play this. It just seemed odd to me. And we went back and asked her about this afterwards. We'll cover that in just a minute. Let's hear what she had to say.
Nothing can get done in Washington. You can always depend on your state government. But guess what? If we lose to the Democrats, you're going to be depending on Democrats instead of Republicans. And I don't know about y'all, I do not want to see that happen. So I'm personally asking you, stay engaged. I know you're enjoying some time off right now, but you've got to get back in it. And you've got to support Republicans on the ballot, get behind our good candidates, make sure you're supporting Josh McCoon because I'm supporting him. President Trump is supporting him. Of keeping Georgia red. So we have a lot of work to do together going into this 2026 election cycle. It's going to be a big one, and it's going to be maybe more important than the last election, and that's hard to even imagine.
He's going to keep Georgia red. Well, right after getting reelected, what happened? The Cobb County commissioners lost 2 Republican seats to Democrats. And what just happened with our public service elections? We lost 2 Republican seats to Democrats. Not exactly a stellar job so far, from what we can tell. Yeah. So
the thing that stands out with me on MTG is the support for McCarthy and his agenda. I remember that vividly.
That's right. Now, one thing that many people don't know, I don't know that we ever really disclosed it, but when we went up in, I believe, 23 to attend a meeting of David Becker's organization called SEER, which is part of the underpinning of what we believe to be rigged elections, bad voter rolls, all kinds of stuff all across the country. Brad Raffensperger was to speak at this event and turned out to be one of the keynote speakers, essentially. We reached out before we went up to Marjorie Taylor Greene's office, asked for her to make herself available either for an interview on site outside this building where the SEER meeting was going on, or we would come to her and interview her in her office. Couldn't get a yes on either one. And after pushing pretty hard through people that know her personally, she did make one post saying, oh, well, here's an interesting meeting going on in Washington this week. No mention of us being up there, simply a mention of the SEER meeting. And that was it. That's all we saw. Why would that be? Deliberately avoided anything to do with calling out SEER. And if you recall, Brad Raffensperger was there with Jamie Raskin, one of the key players on the J6 committee. And you would have thought, boy, there's something stinky in this whole group. What the heck's going on? And she wanted apparently nothing to do with it. Okay. Lastly, here's a question we're not going to be able to answer, but we find it kind of notable. Yesterday, I believe, Trump comes out with this Truth Social post. And it says, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a disgrace to our great Republican Party. Awfully direct. But note something we've talked to you about before, and it goes back again to McCoon's endorsement. When Trump sent the endorsement for McCoon, and he said he'll make a great reelected chairman of the George Republican Party. Now, keep in mind, you can fix posts, but look at this. Look at the way her last name is spelled. Green. Her name is spelled with an E on the end. What's it mean? Don't know, but I bet it means something. So keep your eyes on this in the coming days. We think that there's going to be something notable here. We can't tell you what it is. We'll look back after this plays out and probably have a better feeling of what was trying to be signaled, I guess, to us. Okay. Next topic. We're going to cover this quickly. Last Wednesday on the show, we talked about this unusual survey that got sent out and the fact that even though I'm on the state committee, somehow they ended up with the quote unquote wrong email address for me for the second time in 2.5-3 months. And so after contacting the person who sent it out, I did get it sent. And in part, it asks a bunch of questions. Then it also asks that you return it and complete it by Friday, November 14th. Well, what was interesting was in the day following this. So we reported this on Wednesday. Thursday, midday, folks reported that the original link for the survey had gone down. And what I'm told now is they apparently, when people asked about it, they were reissued a link and were allowed to ask to answer the survey. Just seems odd. Wrong email addresses, surveys that go down when and it claimed that the Google page wasn't published. Just more oddities in communications coming from the Georgia GOP. Just never seems to get smooth and easy for people. Why that is, we don't know. We understand as of today that approximately 150 of the 170 plus members of the state committee answered it. We hope that they were the 150 members of the state committee. And we're not going to go into the detail of it, but a number of the questions seem to be suggesting that more power be given to the staff, potentially some to the chairman. It asked if we should have a chairman that is paid, a full-time paid chairman. That seemed like an odd question in that they wouldn't be able to be changing chairman soon unless Josh McCoon resigned. But more importantly, he has a full-time job. He is a full-time general counsel for the Technical College Association of Georgia. Todd, did you have a comment?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So sorry. So, just continued strangeness with regard to the GOP and their communications. Let's see. What do we have next? So before we do the next, this is going to be a little more lengthy. We're going to go into a portion of the interview that I had with David Clements this week. Before we do that, did you want to take one more break?
Yeah, let's pay a few more bills. The Wellness Company is a big supporter of CDM. They've got a lot of new products out. Ivermectin skin cream, the Mars testosterone support for men, a much more natural way than the shots, the testosterone shots, which have all kind of side effects. They've also got the pain relievers. I think it's called TheraBlue. A lot of unique, interesting products. So if you go to if you go to twc.health/CDM, you can find about everything about this. A lot of stuff that'll go on the stocking as Christmas approaches. This is the ultimate spike detox. If you've got a family member who's been vaccinated and you're worried about the spike protein maybe still being produced in their blood, which causes all kind of havoc to the body. A lot of just great stuff. Of course, the medical kits. I use this when I go traveling. I just had it. I had to dig it out of my bag for the show today, the emergency travel kit. twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM. Check out all the interesting products from the weight loss to the parasite cleanses. A lot of different interesting, unique, useful products. So back to you, Bill. Okay, that's great. All right. So as I said, I had a chance to catch up with David Clements. Now, Professor David Clements, I've known him for few years, and I sometimes find myself calling him David when I really should call him Professor David Clements.
Keep in mind that Professor Clements was a law professor at New Mexico State University and moving toward tenure. And when they mandated the COVID shots, he decided he was not going to take these and pressed them on it based on various types of exemptions. They ultimately did some things to be able to allow them to remove him as a law professor from the university. And I was pleased to see that I believe he is pursuing legally now, reinstituting his tenure there. And we hope that will in fact happen. But in the conversation, I asked a few questions regarding some of his both Substacks and podcasts that he's brought out in the last number of weeks as he reinvigorated the professor's record. And there was one particular question that I wanted to make sure we asked him. I'm going to play this for you. The first thing you're going to see is actually an excerpt from one of Trump's rallies, and I want you to pay attention to that. And then David and I are going to get into that question shortly thereafter. So let's watch this.
Gave me the strongest endorsement. They said that the best president, and the best president by far we've ever had on the border. We had okay, put that sign up, my favorite sign. Put that sign. This is my favorite graph. Oh, I sleep with that. I wrap it around, I kiss it at night. Because without that graph, I'm not here. I hate to tell you. I'm not here without that. But importantly, look at the big red arrow at the bottom. That was the lowest point of illegal immigration ever that we had known recorded history of our country. And look what happened. That was when I left. That was my last day. It was the lowest point. And that included human trafficking, and mostly in women. I hate to tell you that.
All right, welcome back. I'm Bill Quinn. I am joined today by Professor David Clements. All right, for brevity, I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit so we can hear our discussion regarding what I'm getting ready to ask him. Bear with me for a second here. There we go.
I started drilling down in on kind of this idea of how do we truly drain the swamp? How do we give life to the two great promises of Donald Trump? One was, I'm giving you back your country. You know, when he put his hand on the Bible back in 2017, he's transferring power back to the people. How is he going to achieve that? And number two, he said that he caught them all, the bad guys. And so what does that look like from a standpoint of real accountability? What are the mechanics of how you get there? Because everyone and their mother would tell you that they're not satisfied with the level of accountability yet, the number of arrests yet. So many of the offerings since I started wrestling with this idea of Trump inhabiting Article 2 national security, commander-in-chief powers. Could you try tens of thousands of enemy combatant or enemy belligerents? And the answer is yes. Is it legal? Yes. What's the significance of Trump designating Antifa and the narco Venezuelan terrorist? What's the nexus point and how it relates to our elections? And so I'm just trying to solve problems that I see, both from a legal standpoint. Is it legal for him to do X, Y, and Z? And what are the practical obstacles in getting there? And so that's what I've been dealing with. And then most recently, most of the internet has just been set ablaze with Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes. And so I watched that. You know, you can't help but get sucked into it because you're sitting there going, okay, where do I fit into this larger discourse? What do I believe about the people of Israel and the Israeli government in particular? And is Tucker, a Nazi for interviewing Nick Fuentes? I mean, these are things that I don't really want to get involved with, but I have an opinion, and the opinion to me is relevant to this salient point, and that is when people start blaming Tucker for the loss of an election in New York with Mondami, when people start saying that there's a rise of anti-Semitism and it's turning into a certain election result, and none of the people that are positing that have given lip service at all to rigged election machines, to rigged software, to the mail-in ballots. And when we overlook Charlie Kirk in particular and his new concern about censorship coming from the Netanyahu regime, basically there was a offer for an infusion of millions of dollars through American donors, but they were sympathetic to the cause of Israel. And, but there were strings attached. You have to stop being critical of Netanyahu's pursuit of basically genocide in Gaza. Don't be critical of his pursuits for war in Iran. And so you start looking at Turning Point and all of the good that Charlie Kirk did. This person who's always been a staunch defender of Israel, all of a sudden becoming very, very sensitive to the IDF's delay on October 7th and the massacre that occurred there. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he started not only advocating for greater discourse on that issue, but went to meet with President Trump along with Tucker Carlson to say, we don't need another war in Iran. We don't need regime change because regime change has not served the American people going back. And so he's putting his fingers on the pulse of young people and just being so war weary. I mean, if you're under the age of 30, you've never known a year where we weren't involved in at least some abstract
That's right.
war in the Middle East. So it makes me look at, okay, when we talk about money and we talk about money being raised by Turning Point, where my radar starts to just hone in is, what is that money being spent on? And when you realize that over $100 million was allocated for early voting, ballot chasing, and silence on the machines, and I sit there and I go, who does this benefit to have these talking points? And these talking points coming out of something that's purportedly conservative, that are in lockstep with exactly what the Democratic Party says is good about the way that you vote. It's exactly like the RNC's talking points, which have portrayed MAGA time and time again. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly, it's in lockstep with the intelligence agencies' preferred method of how the American people vote. Basically, vote in a way that conceals your ability to detect and see fraud. So this is not me making some wild claim that, Israel's doing this or the Israeli government's doing this. I don't appreciate opinions from certain talking heads ascribing victory or loss to some superficial talking point on how people feel about the Middle East, while there's wholesale avoidance of the machines and the software that literally can create perception through the stroke of a key. And that's what I've been wrestling with. And, so that's where I'm at. And I've kind of, after 12 weeks of ruminating on pretty deep issues like this, I'm taking this weekend off to recharge.
Oh, yeah.
and see if I can get a little bit of fresh inspiration on where to go next.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because myself and others that I've spoken with in the last few months all feel like we're kind of guided that way. If you don't know where to go, wait, listen, pause, and something will bring itself forward often, and you'll feel drawn toward, oh, that's it. That's the next step. And so I know exactly what you're saying. There's so many things in there to talk about. I wanted to ask about something that you focused on several weeks ago. And I had actually seen it myself months before. And it was one of those times when you ask yourself, am I supposed to have seen that? Or is that something I tripped across and I'm supposed to leave it alone? And it was the instance that you brought up during focusing on Trump and his favorite chart, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, most people have looked at that chart. I just spoke to a group this week, and most people have seen that chart. They know exactly what chart you're talking about when you, it was the chart he had up in Butler when he was, when the assassination attempt occurred. But so few, I think one person, maybe two in the room, had ever looked at the detail. And when you do, you notice that the chart says Trump leaves office, and it's pointing to what appears to be about April of 2020. And the question is, what could that mean? So you brought out, is it was this a meaningful communication? And I've been fortunate enough to speak to some folks that have been pretty close to Trump, and I've never heard anybody say, "Hey, if you make a mistake, it's no big deal." If someone made a mistake on a chart like that, you would have thought they'd fix it and fix it quick. And yet that chart has been shown dozens, maybe hundreds of times. How did you come about it? Had you seen it when it first came out, or did you realize later that it was odd? And then how did you struggle through, do I do something with this?
Yeah, well, there are anons, there's the Q movement, right? And they really are the people that focus on every detail there is. And so when I say that, people can roll their eyes and they've got their own opinions on what Q is. But if you want to if you're going to sift through evidence on social media, you're going to find that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of anonymous accounts. And many of these accounts have huge followings. So we're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers that dissect everything. And so I had seen that chart being brought up several times by an anon that goes by the name of Joe Rambo. So I don't want anyone to think that I came up with this on my own. But my kind of, I've had an arm's length distance with the Q stuff, not because I don't find it fascinating, because I absolutely do find it fascinating. And I think people that are so quick to write it off and criticize it, just you need to concede that it's a thing, whether it's a thing that's a white hat operation or a black hat operation. Reasonable people can disagree on what kind of psyop it is, but there's no doubt that it is a psyop. And there are healthy people that can analyze certain drops, and there are unhealthy people that can do the same thing. So the reason why I've never really wrestled with it in the way that I communicate over the past few years is that I've always thought that a solution to draining the swamp in a meaningful way would require the military. So even if you were to ask me in January of 2021, how in the world does Trump fulfill his promise that he's caught them all and he's going to hand the government back to the people? As a longtime civilian prosecutor, I could tell you it's impossible, even in 4 years, to prosecute and bring to justice the number of traitors to this country through the system that I mastered. So the whole premise behind the Q stuff is there's a military-civilian alliance. So even without ascribing or having any faith or knowledge of what Q was, because back then I didn't know what it was in any event, I basically accepted this premise that I agree it's going to require a military-civilian alliance to bring about the benefits of reverse brainwashing of people that have been lied to by the mainstream media for decades. But my biggest concern about whatever this thing is that it might breed passivity if you think that there's some external military force that's going to save you.
All right, so you can see why that was such an exciting interview. That's only about 10 minutes of an hour-long interview with David. We go into a number of different topics. For folks that have not delved into any of this before, then you might want to listen to that. We have it posted up on CDM's Rumble channel, so you can look at the entire interview if you choose to. But understand these things are, the chart's real. It's out there. Why would somebody, one of the things that David says at one point in the interview is, how could a staffer allow a chart that wasn't correct to just live out there for now months, over a year? And the answer is they wouldn't. So what does it mean? Well, I guess we're going to find out at some point. Like many of the other things we talk about, we'll figure out what it means when we figure out what it means.
Wow.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We talk about that. We talk about the nature of the fight that we're going through. With a lot of great topics, and we thank David very much for his time. I've seen great response to the interview once it's been posted. So back to you, Todd.
Well, I'll just play a couple minutes again on the Christian persecution issue. This is Marwan Abdullah. He is a Christian member of the Gettr party in Lebanon. And interesting interview. I'm not going to play anywhere near the whole thing, just a couple minutes. The interview is up on our Rumble and our YouTube channel, but just another taste of what's happening against Christians worldwide. Gettr party, which is an older party in Lebanon. We've been talking a lot about the Middle East, and I wanted to get another perspective. So I asked him to join us, and he was kind enough to do so. So thanks for coming on, Marwan. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
So tell me about the Gettr party. I really, to have to be honest, I don't know a lot about it.
So the Gettr party is one of the oldest parties in Lebanon. It's a center-right conservative party established originally on Lebanese values, which are the values of a sovereign, independent, prosperous Lebanon that resembles the cultural image that we like to broadcast around the world, which is usually reflected with the role of the Lebanese community in every country that you find people of Lebanese origin. We are a country of 5 million people with around 10 million people of Lebanese origin around the world, which is by itself an important message. So the foundation of the party is to preserve the culture and the image and why Lebanon was established in the beginning as a country of freedom, as a country of minorities, as a country of refuge to all persecuted minorities in the Middle East throughout centuries. So this is the foundation of the party. Of course, we have the Christian democracy as a core value in the bylaws of the party. And we work for a best relation of Lebanon with all its traditional partners and traditional allies, and openness of the country to the international scene, to the West, and of course to any country that wants to partner with us. So this is the foundation of the party. To give you also a historical brief, we've been throughout the different historical moments of Lebanon. We've been the main party in fighting for the independence of the country in 1943. We were the main party to stop an Arab takeover of Lebanon in 1958 by Abdel Nasser and all the Arab authorities at the time. We were the resistance movement against the Palestinian Liberation Organization attempt to take over Lebanon, and the Syrian attempt to take over Lebanon. And recently, we've been, and we are still, a main force that is stopping Hezbollah from taking over Lebanon and trying to control the foreign policy and the domestic policy of Lebanon. So this is our continuous struggle to preserve the Lebanese identity and the Lebanese state and institutions as a platform that is open with all our partners around the world.
So I'll leave it at that, Bill. But just a taste, you can find the interview on our Rumble and CDM YouTube channel. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube or our Rumble CDM1, please do so. We're trying to grow those numbers as rapidly as possible. That's all I got today, Bill. I'll be back on the skiff tomorrow at 10 to noon, Monday through Friday Eastern.
That sounds great. And we'll be back Wednesday evening at 7 for more of all the amazing stuff going on here in Georgia. So thanks for being with us. We'll see you. We will see you soon.